Hello, everybody. This is Fernando for the latest Silent Hill podcast. I was going to do the final video for my thoughts on Silent Hill 2, basically rating it and giving my good opinions and then bad opinions about the game itself. And then I realized all of a sudden that I still had one more monster to talk about. In this case, probably the most important monster within the game itself. And so I'm so glad I caught this before I wrapped up the Silent Hill 2 videos. And this monster, of course, is very, very famous. One of the few monsters outside of the nurses who has continued to also endure within multiple other games and other mediums of the Silent Hill franchise. And of course, I'm talking about the famous monster known as Pyramid Head, who obviously you know what he looks like, but you'll see a picture of him here. Now, with regards for this video, I'm going to go ahead and just refer to Pyramid Head just in Silent Hill 2. And then as I wrap up some of the other games, I'll talk about those versions of Pyramid Head in the future. So be on the lookout for those, who knows how far in the future, but those will happen. So when Pyramid Head makes appearances in other games, that's when I'll talk about him specifically there. Now, what is the Pyramid Head? Pyramid Head is one of the most curious, fascinating, most interesting monsters within Silent Hill. There are so many ways that Pyramid Head works. And in a bit of fan service, it seems like there's still some debate going on between Silent Hill fans as to whether or not Pyramid Head truly is, let's say, just something that should have appeared in Silent Hill 2 or that should have continued within other games and other mediums. And this is because within the world of Silent Hill 2, Pyramid Head definitely has had his most impact. Anyone that has seen the game like I have now knows that Pyramid Head pretty much is the ultimate manifestation of, in this case, the main figure, James's innermost thoughts, whether it has to do with the ultimate symbolism of sexual frustration or the ultimate symbolism of experiencing pain and torture, and then lastly, of course, of being an executioner of sorts. All of it wholeheartedly ties to the main character, James. So Pyramid Head obviously is found throughout multiple points within the game. If anything, he's not really a monster to battle, except for probably, I guess you could say, like the very final instance that you see him. But he's more along the lines of someone who kind of spearheads the game forward. He makes sure that the character James moves forward within the world of Silent Hill, almost like a guide or some kind of tour of some sort, a tour guide, someone that is there to make sure that James goes through various points within the game. As the game was playing, that's when I started realizing that, because the first couple of instances that you meet Pyramid Head, there really isn't much anything to do. Either you run away from him or he kind of observes you in some other ways. But once you finally get to the final battle, up until those points, that's when I started realizing that this is not a typical monster. This is just something that is there again to essentially guide you. So what is Pyramid Head in terms of the encounters? Well, he's encountered very early on within the game, within one of the apartments, the Woodside apartments. You're looking at a picture of it here. He produces a very memorable instance. I remember it was like a big lead up of some sort. Like you could, if I recall correctly, it was like the music or the way that the scene played out. It wasn't like a cut scene, but it was definitely something that it was telling you something big is about to come. And then of course you see this guy. Pyramid Head clearly has an iconic look to him within the game. Obviously, his most distinct notion is the portion of his head in the form of a pyramid. It has that rustic, metallic look to him, that decaying look, almost as if this is something that has been weathered out, let's say, in some kind of acidic rain for who knows how long. He's wearing what looks like an apron of some sort that may or may not be made out of flesh altogether. It's difficult to notate because with the way the scene's cut within the film, within the game itself, it looks like it could be human flesh. It looks like it could be something else as well, but it's hard to pinpoint. The Pyramid Head, of course, is also in the shape of a man, a pretty muscular man, someone who is very fit, and then he has what looks like blood stains everywhere throughout his body. But the most interesting thing is, like I mentioned earlier, the pyramid head itself, hence the name. By the way, if I recall correctly, Pyramid Head, the name is not mentioned once, or is it, or if it is, it's only if James analyzes something. I can't remember if it was a painting of some sort, but that's when the name is said. Otherwise, no one else ever refers to him, any one instance, to that name. But Pyramid Head itself, it's supposed to represent purely 100% just James. So after you first encounter him within the Woodside apartments, then that's when you start seeing him more frequently. In fact, his next most memorable encounter has to do with an iconic scene of sorts. This is the time whenever, I forget, it was one of those endless rooms of some sort in the apartments, and then you see him in the corner. He's doing something when it looks like a kitchen area, but it's kind of hidden by one of the walls. But then as the scene cuts into him, then you'll see that he's actually performing what looks like a form of sexual violent, like sexual acts to some of the other monsters. In this case, I think they were the lying figures, if I recall correctly, and it's just like sexual assault. He's actually performing a very, very violent form of sexual assault on these monsters. He notices James somewhere around on the other side, and so because of it, that's when he starts almost, I guess, playing a game of pursuit with James as he hides within one of the closets. It's like a straight out of, let's say, a horror movie of some sort, where the monster slowly creeps up to the place where someone is hiding. They kind of know that that person is there, and so they're just trying to kind of like tease them and play with them. And this, in this case, what Pyramid Head does. That scene is also very memorable because of the way Pyramid Head acts. Clearly, with the head itself having no discernible eyes or no discernible way for Pyramid Head to see, he produces, it looks like, some kind of sensory of sorts with his hands, because he waves it in front of the location that James is at, almost as if he's trying to use his hands to see what is going on. And so that was also very memorable as well. And this is also one of the first times where Pyramid Head is attacked up front by James, because at that point he feels like he's in danger. He takes out his gun, and then that's when he starts firing, and Pyramid Head leaves, which is a pretty common encounter within the game afterward. He's encountered several other times in other apartments. At other points, he has finally the knife, the infamous knife that he has, known as the Great Knife. And during those occasions, it's all about running away from Pyramid Head, because my understanding is it doesn't have a die factor. Like, it's not actually made to die within those scenes. Somebody please let me know if that's correct or not. But otherwise, the whole point is to just run away as quickly as possible. And then in other occasions, just like the one when you encounter Pyramid Head up on the roof, I believe it was the hospital, when he appears, he simply is there to make sure that James once again gets to the next level, like I was mentioning earlier. So that way, whenever he appears, you don't even get a chance to attack him. Instead, he attacks you in some way, and then that's it. You get moved to the next level. There was that also somewhat memorable instance where he was encountered within that labyrinth, that very, very long labyrinth level, because you got to go inside Pyramid Head's actual room, and you get to see, I guess, what the world of Pyramid Head is, with regards to, I guess, his surroundings and what he would make up when it comes to the location of his room, like what the inside of his room would look like in a weird, macabre sort of way. As far as other encounters with Pyramid Head, you pretty much see them kind of scattered throughout the game, more along the lines of just like almost like cameos of sorts. Like this right here is a painting that's found within one of the museums, I believe, and it's one of the most famous paintings of Pyramid Head within the Silent Hill franchise. This one is used to this day by fans for much of their wallpapers, and it's a pretty iconic scene. It showcases, of course, Pyramid Head in all his glory with the spear, and then some of the other bodies that he has, I guess, quote unquote, executed. And then also here's another picture here. It showcases what looks to be like a little tablet of some sort that Pyramid Head is found in. Again, just showing proof that with regards to this guy, because he is so closely tied to James, no matter where James goes, he will still find what looks to be, I guess, items related to Pyramid Head. He actually makes one final appearance later on in the game, and this is finally a time where you actually battle him. He's there, he kills Maria, and then when that happens, there's two of them, and then the battle is on. Pretty easy battle though. It's suggested that with the encounter is just like with the other monsters from Silent Hill 2, they're not really there to give James a hard time in terms of melee attacks. It's pretty much just dodging the attacks, finding a rhythm. In this case, it's firing a couple of times, and then Pyramid Head will thrust his spear forward. Just dodge it and then repeat. And when you do that, then that's when the game took on a surprising twist. I was very surprised to see this. Once James realizes the answer to his quest, like in other words the guilt, and that he must truly answer for it. It seems like the symbolism that Pyramid Head stood for, the creation of him within the game, is fulfilled. And so the twist was all of a sudden they killed themselves. They took their own spears, planted them on the ground, and then used, I guess, like the thrust of their own head as they threw it straight onto the spear itself. That surprised me. I thought it was going to be like any other final monster battle where it was to the end, but no. In this case, because the Pyramid Heads are solely tied to James, and James finally fulfills his quest, then they're no longer needed. And when that happens, that's when they end up killing themselves. So that was very, very surprising to see. So what is, in terms of Pyramid Head, the symbolism involved? Again, I was mentioning at the very beginning, there's a lot of fans that believe that Pyramid Head should have just been in Silent Hill 2 only, because he seems to be the only monster that is quote unquote exclusive to James. And the whole world of Silent Hill is about James in Silent Hill 2. And the reason for this is because, again, Pyramid Head is the executioner of Silent Hill, and in this case he relates to James because James killed, in this case, Mary. And then on top of that, James, before that happened, he had extreme, I guess, sexual frustration with what was happening with Mary and her condition, and how he felt, in this case, as a man, and what he could not do with Mary anymore. And so Pyramid Head, the way that he attacks some of the other monsters, especially the female monsters within the game, that is again tied to James and his sexual frustration. There's also the idea that Pyramid Head is the subconscious, the subconscious ideas of James when it comes to doing violent attacks. Like there's one thing is with regards to sexual frustration. There's the other notion that James is truly a monster himself. Like he actually wants to commit these crimes, but doesn't do so, but for the fact that it could get him, let's say, in a lot of trouble. In fact, the main guy, one of the creators of Silent Hill, a guy by the last name, can't remember his first name, but the last name Ito, he said that pretty much that's it. Like Pyramid Head is James, and James is Pyramid Head within the game. And so that's very, very fascinating to note, because if that's the case, then the way that he kept killing Maria within the game multiple times could show that James truly is also a monster within the game. Like he is someone who is wanting to execute people, and not just that, but also again commit violent sexual acts to other people too. It's just all repressed, and James is not truly acting on it as well. Here's some interesting concept art too, with regards to the Pyramid Head and how he was being created for Silent Hill 2. You'll notice this one is a far, far cry from the final incarnation. It showcases Pyramid Head instead in some kind of white garb of some sort, completely hiding his face. And the whole idea was to make sure that Pyramid Head again has no face, because it makes it far more eerie. if you can't see what the monster is thinking or looking at, then it makes their actions far more creepy. Much like in the movie Aliens, those aliens themselves, they don't have eyes, and so it's far more impactful when they're looking at you, but at the same time they're not looking at you. Makes you wonder what they're gonna do. And then what I loved about Silent Hill 2 is that, again, those little hints throughout the game that showcased what was going on. Like, I believe, I was trying to remember is if it's this one or not, but it showcases it looks like what could be what's called the Valtel sect of the Order. I found this though on the Wikia page for Silent Hill, and darn it, I can't remember if this is from Silent Hill 2 or not. But it was interesting to know is that the guy on the left could actually be Pyramid Head himself. And then after the world of Silent Hill was taken over, in this case by Alessa, then this guy was turned into Pyramid Head and forever is tormented and tortured from Alessa's act going forward. So someone please point me out on that if this picture was in Silent Hill 2, and if so, then that points to it. If it was from another game, then my apologies for talking about it. But at least I love those little clues again that lead to the history of Silent Hill, and in this case, it has to do with Pyramid Head. But also one last thing, there's the notion, as I'm mentioning as well, that people believe that their appearances of Pyramid Head in some of the other games and some of the other mediums, they're just fan service because he should have only been in Silent Hill 2. It's been disputed that this is not correct, and the reason for it is because other people that experience Silent Hill 2 have their own versions of monsters, and those monsters are sometimes viewed by the other main characters. And so when that happens, then the idea that Pyramid Head truly can be in other games or in other versions of games and in other mediums is true, because it's not solely tied to one person if other people have seen other people's monsters. So that leads to more credence to the fact that yes, Pyramid Head should have been in some of the other games, and obviously he is because of the great response that he received from fans after Silent Hill 2. So all pretty great stuff when it comes to one of the most iconic characters within Silent Hill 2. So alright everybody, if anyone has any more information with regards to Pyramid Head, specifically to Pyramid Head in Silent Hill 2, that would be great to hear. So alright everybody, thanks again as always, take care.